Today we're going to talk about melting down our scraps. Especially with silver, you end up with lots and lots of scrap metal, and there's no reason to let that go to waste. You can send it back to a refinery, but they're going to charge you. I have access to this process, so I melt my own scrap down and form it into metal. So I'm going to explain what's going to happen first, because the torch is very loud, and with the safety gear, it's just going to be really hard to hear what I'm saying. So this is an oxyacetylene torch. Usually we use acetylene and air. This is acetylene and oxygen. It gets much, much hotter, and that will allow us to reach melting temperature faster and more consistently with our metal. Silver has a relatively low melting temperature, so I'm not going to have to go crazy high. This is our crucible. It is porcelain, and it's got a coating of clear flux, which is glass, that keeps the metal from being absorbed into the porcelain. I'll put my metal in here, I'll heat it up, and you can see that there's a spout here for pouring into my mold. We have two molds. I just used this one, so I'm not going to touch it. It's hot, but it's a bar. It just pours into like a bar stock. And then we have this one, which I'm going to use, that pours into kind of a sheet mold that it's like a little thin rectangle, and I can roll it out on the rolling mill. So I've got my mold clamped and set up. I also have here some flux. This is a powder, and it's going to help keep our metal clean as it's heating. And then I have a graphite rod where I can use that to stir the metal and also to pull out any impurities that might be there. This metal's clean, so I don't expect any, but there is a little bit of casting material, so it could have some. I also have some tongs, and I have these awesome darkening glasses. This oxyacetylene torch gets very hot and very bright, and it can really hurt your eyes. So when we're using it, we put on these goggles. Here, take a look. You see how dark they are? That's gonna protect our eyes, but it makes it really hard to see. And then finally, we have these heat-resistant gloves. I really only put it on the hand that's holding the torch because it gets a little hot. I like to have my other hand free to handle the metal scraps a little bit easier. So most importantly, all of this metal is dry. If it has any moisture in it at all, that moisture will boil inside the crucible, and the act of boiling can fling molten metal out at me, and I don't want that. So all of this metal is clean, but it is dry. It has not been cleaned right before I did this process. So I'm going to light my torch. I'm going to turn the acetylene on first, light it, and you'll see a very dirty flame with lots of black smoke coming off the end. Then I'll turn on the oxygen, and you'll see the flame come up into a little blue cone, and it'll be relatively a loud hiss. Then you're going to see me preheat the crucible. I want to make sure it's nice and warm, kind of like preheating the oven. And then you'll see me preheat my mold. If the mold is not hot when the metal goes in, it's like the metal just jumps right out, like when you get into a cold tub or something. So you've got to heat the mold, and then it looks like it's got a pretty good carbon coating on it. The carbon is this dusty black stuff that is going to keep the metal from sticking. But just before, I might cut the oxygen and use the dirty acetylene to recarbonize it, and then keep heating. So I'll go back to my crucible, I'll heat, and then I'll start putting the metal in little bits at a time using a little bit of flux. You want to use enough flux to keep it clean, but not too much where you end up with pieces of glass or impurities in your metal. All right, time to get started. This is coming on over here. Okay, so I'm done. Whew. You know, I've been doing this for a very long time, over 10 years, and melting metal never becomes less awesome. I never get tired of doing it, and there's a constant like fight or flight instinct that kicks in because you know that fire is very hot, you know that beautiful liquid metal is hot, and so my heart races the whole time, even though I've been doing this for so long. So this field is a constant source of entertainment for me, and I'm happy to have you guys along.